Today's October 15th, 2021. For some reason, my electronics don't seem to be working very well. My video keeps cutting off at certain times, or when I try to video myself, it doesn't seem to be accessible. So I've been deleting a lot of the data. That way I had storage to make sure I had room for these videos. But apparently I'm just having a lot of difficulty with all of that. So anyway, it's getting to be below 50 degrees at night, apparently, Fahrenheit, here in the United States, Hot Springs, Arkansas. And I'm still homeless, and I've discussed my ailments and issues with many people, and no one seemed to want to help me last year, so I've been living out of my car for nearly an entire year. And although I think that it's hilarious that I used to run off when I was a child and try to freeze to death in the snow, I think it would just be really fitting if that were to happen now. I mean, I think it's hilarious because everyone in my life has proven that if I talk back and discuss the truth and discuss my true emotions toward the situations that I lived through, that I'm undeserving of shelter, that I'm undeserving of food, that I'm undeserving of love, I'm undeserving of compassion, I'm undeserving of humanity, of being part of society. So I realize after conveying my story a multitude of times that the only way I was going to get access to my child is through divulging every aspect to the world through these electronic means, because everyone that I had spoke to here in this area, you know, in and out of the psych wards, in and out of different hospitalizations and things, they told me the same thing. You just have to continue to take your medicine and make sure that you're okay, and then get a place of your own, and, you know, fight your ex-husband in court, and then you'll get to see your daughter again. That's what they tried to tell me. And although that seems right in this day and age, to where their judicial system, the courts here, feel like they can run everyone and everything, and I can respect that their mindset, it has been set in such a way. None of that has been diversified culturally, so they still see certain people as a virus, essentially, that needs to be smudged out. So regardless of my past and the good things that I had done and being a blood donor, things like that, trying to put good into the world since I was a youth, I was categorized as a troublemaker down here because I was associating with certain people that were also troublemakers down here in the South. And it was because a lot of the times I was purchasing medicinal marijuana on the street. So I knew how society had deemed me less than, because I sought out the medication that I felt was going to help me for all of my stressors, for all of my bouts of suicide attempts and everything like that. So far, so good, mind you. I smoke a lot in order to combat any feelings of those suicidal ideations, homicidal ideations. But like I said, the only time I have those homicidal ideations is toward anyone that has assaulted me prior, or abused me prior. So that makes perfect sense And the fact that I can hold off on that proves that I am not insane. Yet people like to categorize me as mentally ill or mentally disturbed, which I don't understand, because for someone as compassionate and loving as me, to be deemed mentally insane or disturbed or crazy is an insult, because I see so much in the world around me that's hypocritical, where people presume they're healthy or that their mindset is the right way because they abided by all these earthly plane, these rules here in this structured caste system here. And I say, to heck with that. I do. I honestly wish that I could be appropriate in every facet and not even have to cuss all the time. But a lot of that swearing, like I've stated in prior videos, is my aggression coming out in a way that I can squelch, to squash it, to minimize it, so that I don't act out in a violent way physically or hurt myself by demeaning myself sexually again. Because there are many times in the past where, because I sustained so much trauma, sexual trauma growing up, I sought out partners randomly when I was not feeling myself. And I would have, bouts of promiscuity because I knew that I was seeking some type of adoration or admiration from people that meant nothing to me also. But in my mind, I would make out a little fairy tale scenario for myself in order to get through those actions. And then afterward, I would feel so remorseful that I wanted to slit my wrists. So a lot of it, I realized I had to stay celibate for a lot of my my personal well-being, my overall health, physically and mentally. So, it's gonna be freezing out. I try not to make it seem like I'm so jealous of my ex-husband and he has a house now, and my mom and they all have places to stay and yada yada yada, and they're being taken care of. Let them be taken care of. I really don't care. If they feel like they're doing right by the world by hurting me, then so be it. Inevitably, they'll be proven to be whatever they are. And I don't even have to state whatever they are, because I give people the facts of how I've seen it and how I've tried to convey to them. First off, let's speak about my parents. My mother always prided herself on being a great mother. Yet, she's not here for me at this instance because I spoke back to her about my brother, who was 31 years old, sleeping with a 16-year-old. So the fact of it is that she believes, because of her mindset from being back whenever, decades ago, when she got pregnant at 16 and had her first child at 16, that that's okay. I don't believe that that's okay. We have proven in science that we're not actually mentally developed until we're 25. So if we're not mentally developed and we're having children that are not even yet mentally developed within our biology, the chemistry, that we're very young, our minds are not set in that way. Sure, physically we're able to, physiologically our bodies react to where we want to, we crave that family urge and everything. And I knew that I had that innate urge to want to seek out love in that way, but I held off as long as I could. and I ended up having my daughter when I was 25. So I tried so hard not to make an inappropriate decision when I was younger, to say, and I had gotten pregnant when I was 21 and had aborted it. And I know that that is wrong. I mean, just within my own heart, to know that I stopped a beating heart, and it was my selfishness to have had sex and to have created that child. And then I got pregnant a second time with the same person. And it was all a bunch of, manipulation, where it's like, oh yeah, we'll be together, and I love you, and we won't have one now, we'll just have it later. And I'm just like, are you serious? Like, I'm not okay. And of course, I realize now, looking back, how easily people could manipulate me, because I've always displayed signs of naivety, just being so, people think I'm not aware because I'm always fearful. And I've got these giant eyes where I'm like absorbing as much information as possible, usually startled and frightened because I have no idea how people are going to react. And of course, that stems from childhood trauma, of course, and the fact that I didn't know. My father was very reactive. We had to walk on eggshells around him all the time, and he would go fly off the handle at any instance for any little thing. And I didn't want to get physically assaulted. I didn't want to get slapped. I didn't want to get hit. I didn't want to get anything thrown at me. So I always tried to appease those around me. And the same with, like, if you spoke to any of my teachers growing up, they would say she had wonderful grades. She didn't show any signs of depression or anything. Because I was a zombie, I was put on medication. And so I just sort of went through all the routine, that what was demanded of me, because even at home I was getting beat and told, because you spoke out, and that makes you the bottom of all of us. You spoke out against our family, so that makes you less than. And so I realized that I was being persecuted and ostracized at home, and I didn't get a lot of that at school, because I tried to fit in as best I could and make friends as best I could, even though I couldn't hang out outside of school with anyone, really. Very seldom was I allowed to go. When I went to a slumber party when I was like in the 5th or 6th grade, it was like the most miraculous thing I'd ever done. Like, it was so amazing to me. And all these different trips that I got to go on, go to through school, that was amazing to me, because my childhood was not the best. When they told people, yeah, we're going out vacationing, this and that, it wasn't vacation as much as it was us being manual labor for our parents. So I realized, after being trained in such a way and disciplined in such a way, that that's why my mannerisms are the way they are, and why I'm so demanding of others, and why I'm so demanding toward the people that I'm in a relationship with as well. So, and I know I go off and I talk about different things. I go off on my tangents and I come back to what I was speaking about originally. I just have a lot of processes going on in my head all the time. And I'm always trying to solve things. So solve puzzles, solve different aspects of even my own reality and what I see around me. That's why I'm so helpful a majority of the time, and compliant, and willing to, I wouldn't say appease people as much as just accommodate them. So when I discuss my life and people are like, well, your vocabulary is just, like that lady said earlier today, you're brilliant, obviously whatever you go into, you're gonna succeed, excel in it, and I haven't picked my niche yet. I haven't found my niche. So, and to think that I've squandered this much of my life dwelling on other people and their thoughts and their actions toward me mortifies me, and makes me realize that I've not given myself enough credit for what I've sustained, the trauma that I've sustained, and that I keep getting persecuted and ostracized for speaking my truth. And The fact that nobody's actually stepping up to the plate and saying, you know, yes, you're absolutely right, and this is not morally sound. What has happened here is unethical. But no one is doing anything toward that, my story. I'm just relaying every bit of information that I possibly can. And some people are like, oh, you're just a really good actress. No, I've just really had a lot of time to process and think about these things, and years of therapy and repetitive structuring, structuring my sentences around these crucial circumstances that have happened in my life, these crucial developmental stages that I was either held back from progressing in. That's why I'm so emotionally drained when I deal with other people, because I'm not able to have fulfilling relationships, well-rounded and communicative, in the sense that people don't see me as a threat. People see my vocabulary as a threat. They see my intelligence as a threat. They see that my knowledge of my own actions is a threat, because I already know why I act out. I know why and when I'm about to. I'm sort of my own service animal in that sense, where I can speak out right before something is going to happen, and I'll tell it's a warning, and people aren't believing of that. They think that since I'm able to capture this information and acknowledge this information, that I'm always coherent. But that is not true. I am not always here, if that makes any sense. I go in and out of reality, and will have full conversations and interactions with people and not remember it, because there's something else guiding me, if that makes any sense. Autopilot. So as much as I would like to take credit for even some of the artwork that I've done, I don't even know what that is. I just call it God. I just say that it's something working through me to keep me going, because my body has sustained so much trauma that I literally faint sometimes. I've been known to faint. I've been known to collapse, or to, and sometimes I was just joking, but it's not a joke. When it actually does happen, it's not me joking around. I only had done it jokingly with friends a couple of times. But now, since the years of progressing, and I'm realizing what trauma I did sustain, it was hard to get out of that stage of denial, and realizing that these people that I interacted with were actually what was told to me by the therapists and the psychologists and research and different documentation that I read, articles that I've read on similar topics. So I know that inevitably I'd like to pursue schooling again. I just don't know how I'm going to interact with people socially, because I'm so awkward, because I will literally tell them my life story in one sentence. And that's not normal. It's not normal. I realize that now, and I realize the different things that I was doing that were detrimental in my overall routine, in my overall mindset, in my overall just the lack of acknowledgement in my physical health contributed a lot to my mental disorders, where I thought that people were talking and discussing about me behind my back because of the weight. They didn't know me from prior. They didn't realize that I was this petite prior, and then I'd gained all the weight, so I felt as though I was being watched constantly. But then, in actuality, it was just bits and pieces of me being on pharmaceuticals that caused all of these side effects. And I'm waking up slowly and recognizing that now I don't have to have any of that fear toward other people, because a lot of times when I'm engaged with people, I don't have that crazy thought that they're talking about me, or they're looking at me, or they're discussing me, and why am I alone eating or whatever. A lot of times I wish I would have had this sense of awareness years ago, this self-awareness, and to have acknowledged it so that I could have progressed in a profession somehow. But then, like I said, everything happens for a reason, and everything happens in order for us to learn from. We have to acknowledge our faults before we can acknowledge our powers, our actual strengths. So after some time of recognizing all of my faults, all of my flaws, and the fact that I had lost myself and my self-confidence and my overall charisma, I had realized that I needed to get back down to the bare basics. And the universe was helping me to do that. When I would act out with my emotions, I realized that that was a beneficial reaction. That was me exposing the trauma verbally. When I would talk out against my mother, when I would tell people that she knew, no, this is how it really went down. And, sure, it seemed like it was mental instability on my end, but in actuality, it was just me letting out my peace to the world around me, because I have no friends. I have no family. I have barely a therapist that listens to me, and I haven't spoken to him for almost 4 weeks now because he hasn't tried to contact me. So I always pray that he's okay, and then he always reacts as though he's like, oh yeah, it's wonderful, great to see you again. And it's like, do you even remember that I've been homeless for the last year, and that I'm going and I'm suffering through a lot, and you tell me to be chipper and this and that? And it does help. I'm not going to lie. There are some things that are beneficial, and that's just to help people through that process of mourning and mourning the losses of the things that they once had, and recognizing that there's more out there in the world, more positivity to be had if we just have a more positive outlook and mindset toward things. And it's true, the vibration is there, that, if you not continually think positively, that's, it's irrational to think that we can do that 24/7 here in like a metropolitan society where we have to interact with others in order to sustain ourselves. But after I do some more research and everything, because I'm not really sure what I'm good for at this point, or what my story is good for. I just know that I want to write a novel based around all the events that I've lived through, everything that I've sustained, and I just want to be able to help people, and to help them, to encourage them, to state that there is always a tomorrow if you choose for there to be a tomorrow. If you make those attempts to better yourself today, if you just make one effort every day. And I'm living proof of that, because within the last few years, I sustained myself through different means of couponing, low income clearance items, and even at my lowest points, I was still able to maintain that healthful diet and eating fresh produce as much as I could, and wasn't starving myself whatsoever, and even spoiling myself in those moments where I was my weakest, so that I could have that shot of oxytocin or dopamine, and so that I'd have enough serotonin and happy hormones in order to sustain myself through those low moments as well. So a lot of times people probably wonder why I go in and out of the grocery stores here and there and just pick up 1 or 2 items, and they see me continually and they're clearance items. But it's me sustaining myself, and I'm thinking, I don't need to worry about what other people think about me anymore. I just need to share my story and to share exactly what I'm doing, and in hopes that it'll help someone else before this reaches my child. And you know, people have told me you're an inspiration, the way that you maintain yourself, the way that you're so graceful and you're so appropriate for certain things, you're so articulate. And I just say, you know, I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of watching educational videos on YouTube. I do some, you know, learning linguistics. I want to learn. I progressively just look into what more can I teach myself today to help me by tomorrow. And the little things that I picked up here and there, I learned how to swim this last few months. I can make laps across the pool, no problem, whereas before I was afraid to put my feet in the water. So for the progression of that into what I'm doing now is monumental in my own, what is it? Yeah, it's I'm sorry. There are a lot of times where I have to sit and pause and go through my vocabulary, because it's been so long since I've had decent conversations with other people. And I realized that it was because I was doing a lot of online dating with people that were of a certain caliber, because my looks only gauge certain caliber of people, but my intelligence is a different caliber. So I have to realize that there are different areas. If I want to interact and engage with people of a certain intellect, I have to put myself out there in such a way to where I won't have to deal with people that can't comprehend my words. And I don't feel as though I have to lessen my intelligence or simplify my terminology for anyone. If they cannot advance and understand linguistics and understand certain things, they're not going to be able to progress where the world is becoming more evolved, and we're interacting with all these different cultures and languages, and that's how it should be. We should be able to be open-minded and accepting of others regardless of their religion and culture or any of that. So the fact of the matter is, we need to get down to people's level. And when I was like having my panic attacks, a lot of times authoritative figures, they say, we don't have to get down to your level. You have to come up to ours. And I'm thinking, do you realize how ignorant you sound? Do you realize how disruptive that is for everyone else? Because half the time you purposefully attack people that are uneducated. You purposefully incarcerate them because they cannot fight back verbally or intellectually. And I think, like, no wonder I've been there in certain instances to help some individuals that couldn't stand up for themselves. And so I acknowledge from all sides. That's why I knew that I had to go to jail at some point in my life. And boy, was it fucking horrifying. And it's not going to happen again. It's not. Whatever people think, presume they know about me is completely incorrect, apparently. So whatever this system is down here that they made me look like I was some kind of aggressive criminal, and then they tell me, no, you're not a criminal, blah, blah, blah. You were just criminal trespassing. I'm sorry, what? That means that you're calling me a criminal for trespassing, for trying to speak to my ex-husband. The fact that they showed up within 5 fucking minutes, too. And the fact that you know, when I call the cops and everything, too, why don't they show up any quicker? Why didn't they arrest the people 7 years ago that physically assaulted me and ripped the shit out of my clothes and everything? I was like 60 pounds heavier than I am now. I wasn't looking to fight anybody. I just had a baby. She was 2 years old. I wasn't fighting nobody. I was hopped up on hydrocodone from the dentist that day from getting all 4 of my wisdom teeth taken out, and no one understood that. They saw me as the violent criminal, and that's why they arrested and hauled me off and didn't haul off the people, because it was their home. Because they were the homeowners and I was trespassing, is what they said. I was there to pick up my daughter's belongings because I was dropping off their belongings. And then the cousin came up and physically assaulted me. What is going on with the world? And I have to just sit here and just like, and they're like, you just have to keep your mouth shut and take it. And I'm like, no, I'm not keeping my mouth shut. That's one thing. That is one thing. I'm over it. I'm not harboring any of this resentment anymore. I want the world to understand why they saw me in such a light. I want everyone to understand why I have a criminal record here in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and nowhere else. Nowhere else. I want the world to understand that when I spoke out when I was 12 years old, that no one did anything. CPS did not come up. None of it. There were no regular checkups. There were no visits. So I continually got molested. And just had to keep my mouth shut. Because everyone said if you end up getting carted off and go to a foster home, you'll get raped. You'll get this, you'll get that. Even worse than what you have here. And that's exactly how the cops will teach you too. So apparently, since my dad is a demon, and the cops act similarly to that, and want to demand their power to be all over everything like that, that's how I relate them now. They associate with one another, just the same cogs in that wheel turning for that money. Yeah. And so the same with my ex-husband. They all are the same entity to me. Everything, all of that system, demonic. Because if you cannot help the little girls that were screaming out and then they turn into bitter-looking, bug-eyed, sour-mouthed women like me, no wonder I get frowned at by older people. And the kids are like, I love you. Like this little girl at Walmart just now. And she came out of the man's bathroom. She had to have been like 6 years old or something. And she came out of the man's bathroom with her dad. She was like 5 or 6. Or maybe she was even 7. She was older, 6 or 7. She came out of the boys' bathroom, and I was coming out of the girls' bathroom, and I just sort of like looked at her, made a slight look, and she looked over at me with some filthy eyes, and I just sort of like smiled at her, and she was like, oh, hi, like, hi. Because apparently she gets frowned at for going in the men's bathroom with her dad all the time, which I'm sure if he keeps her safe and she doesn't have to gawk at any, then it's one story. But half the time I just don't understand that. And I understand if you're sending a little girl into the woman's bathroom that you don't know anybody, I get that, there's not. But that makes me worry about my own daughter. That makes me worry about all the times my ex-husband was around my child. Because when I would get her after, she was 4 years old, and then her shorts just got shorter and shorter. She had hoochie shorts one day, and I took photos of them. Her wearing them as she's climbing the jungle gym. Barely covered her butt. I was horrified. Horrified. I still say any person that puts those short of shorts on a little girl like that and sexualizes her for the rest of the South and all this and that are ignorant, that don't understand, to not look away. I understand we need to empower girls and we need to not, shame our bodies and things like that. But there are so many perverts out in the world, my father being one of them, my brothers, all of that. And my ex-husband apparently does not care that his daughter went around with these short shorts on, climbing jungle gyms in them. I was horrified, mortified actually, because this is my own child dressing in that way. And never was she ever pictured in anything like that when she was around and with me. She always had appropriate length of clothing and everything was covered. But it's not like that anymore. And she's going to end up suffering even worse because my ex-husband's just going to allow that, whatever that is. Wow. So anyway, I know I get off on my tangents, and there's 35 minutes of me yapping about just my reality and how I see things as it is. But I'm mortified, completely horrified that this is my reality and you're the only people that I have to talk to. And I don't even care that you don't talk back, because I prefer that you don't. I prefer that people don't talk back, because half the time they're incorrect. Majority of the time they're incorrect. So whenever somebody's trying to attack me for having emotions, I just attack them right back and state the facts. What in your mind makes you believe that your opinion matters to me in the slightest? Exactly. It doesn't. Because you don't pay my bills. No one pays my bills here. The government pays my bills because I'm disabled. Because I suffered a lot of trauma in their hands. So, and I only get a certain amount of money. I don't even get like the majority of what most people get. I just get whatever based off of what I've worked in the past. And I didn't get to work a whole lot before I was classified as disabled, because I went through so many mental breaks. I couldn't handle it anymore. I couldn't handle having to deal with everybody and their smiling faces and yada yada and all this happy family, this happy family, that. I was like, no, I've got to deal with my past. I've got to deal with the fact that I didn't have those luxuries, those privileged lifestyles. And everyone presumes I did because I appropriate myself in such a way. And no one had any idea that I had suffered that bad, that immensely, because I always had a smile on my face and I was always willing to help. And I still am. Which is the weirdest thing, because even on my lowest days, like on my lowest points, I still do manage to do some one good deed for someone other than myself. And I mean, like, that's all I live for anymore. It's just like those moments where I can finally just give back, because there's nothing else I can do. I have nothing to offer but my blood, which I'm gonna go donate. And not even like the plasma for money. No, I donated it for free because I know that the difference in giving back and the rationale behind it has helped me and helped me survive. Doing good in the world helps me to progress and succeed, and I've noticed that. And it's just how the flow of energy works, the universe works. So I know that when I had everything ripped away from me, I was doing too much that was selfish, greedy, lustful, prideful, slothful, wrathful, envious. What's the other one? Anyway, I like to list the 7 deadly sins: greed, lust, sloth, pride, wrath, envy, and shoot, greed, lust, sloth, pride, wrath, envy. That's so weird, because I'm like always able to name them off. Gluttony. Yeah. Greed, gluttony, lust, sloth, pride, wrath, and envy. Anyway, alright then. Well, everybody have a good night. I'm gonna go roll up and see what this 48-degree weather feels like with a very little blanket right now. I did not get a blanket, so I got a tiny little blanket to wrap up in tonight. And normally I'd be like, okay, just go find some dude to go. I just don't want to get touched. I just don't want to get touched anymore. Like, I would rather freeze to death in my car. It's getting to that point where, like, at first I was like, okay, you can manage. You can just go chill with people and they'll let you chill and they won't touch. No, they always want to touch you. So no thank you. No thank you. People are crazy. And they're just like, people wonder what is wrong with me. And I'm just like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just crazy. Maybe I'm just crazy. Anyway, have a wonderful night. Peace out.